What up, Facebook? What up, brothers? It's Friday night, coming at you live from the King household. It is Man Up Friday here at Mike Your Mentor, where we go through a little course I took when I lived in Chicago. That was very helpful for me at a pivotal time in my life. I was struggling with who I was. I was struggling with what I believed. I was struggling with being married, newly married, and I wasn't sure if I wanted to move forward in that. I was kind of becoming almost a self-fulfilling prophecy, and ending up just like my dad, something that was my worst nightmare. And I needed something in my life. I needed a breakthrough. I needed to turn my life around. And by the grace of God, I was able to find this course, which we've been going through here every Friday night. And it gave me hope, right? It shined some light on some things that I never knew before. And like the saying goes, you don't know what you don't know. And it made a profound impact on my life to go through these things and to look back at them. So that's what I do here every Friday night around this time. We go through this course and I do some teaching from it. And the reason why is just to help other guys, right? So I grew up in some pretty crazy situations and went through a lot of things. And the thing that made the difference in my life was I had mentors. Mentors through books I read and mentors who came alongside of me personally and refused to let me go, I guess, wayward. It didn't always work. I made a lot of mistakes, but those guys sowed into my life. They spoke into my life. They gave me vision. They gave me hope. And they made a huge difference. So now that I'm older and wiser, it's my turn to give back, right? It's my turn to take that wisdom that's been imparted in me and share that with other men. You know, and it doesn't matter if you're older or you're younger. Wisdom is wisdom, and there's no denying that. So grab a notepad, grab a journal, maybe take some notes on your phone. Tonight's going to be some good stuff because we're going to dive into the first of 5 wounds that every man has to deal with in order to answer that higher calling in their life, right? The higher calling that we have as fathers, the higher calling that we have as leaders in our community, as employers or employees at work, and as husbands. And we're going to see pretty quick what happens when that responsibility is abdicated, when we don't answer that call on our lives. So I'm excited about tonight. So let's jump in here and get started. Share my screen with you guys. All right, so this week's chapter, or this week's title, is called Remembering Dad. And, you know, we're going to look back at our fathers, or maybe our lack of fathers in our life, and ask ourselves some tough questions and really dig in to this wound. Some men aren't affected by this wound, right? And if you're not, I mean, that's awesome, right? That's cool. But I'd say, man, it's got to be maybe 80% of the men that I talk to and deal with on a regular basis have some sort of wound from their father, whether they realize it or not. So this picture right here is one of the only pictures I have of my father. I think I have 3, if I'm remembering correctly. And you know, that's my mom there on the left. That's my dad there on the right, and then that's me. I'm probably 6 or 7, if I had to guess, in this picture. And as you can tell, I'm smiling ear to ear, and I've got a huge grin on my face. And why is that? It's because, you know, my dad's home. My dad was in and out of prison He served 3 different bids until I think I was the age of 10 for narcotics and other things. So yeah, when my dad was around, it really made me excited, and I don't know if my dad ever fully understood that or grasped that, because we only work with what we have. I don't know hardly anything about my dad's father. I met him, I think, twice. One time I know for sure when we went down to Alabama, where my father's family was from. But I really don't know much about my grandpa on that side. But I do know this, right? Like, we, the way that we live in our house is what our kids will live out in their lives. And um, I want to say that my dad's choices in life, were definitely influenced and somewhat of a reflection of what he saw growing up from his father and from the men that influenced his life. So that's just a crucial point, right? Like, it goes to show how big of a difference we make, not only in our own kids' lives, but in other people's lives that are watching us and looking to us for direction, and to see how we react to things, how we carry ourselves, are we true to our word, all those type of things, right? And I was always watching my dad. I was always watching the other men in my life, whether they meant something to me or not. I wanted to see what men did. Did they do what they were going to say? How did they treat the opposite sex? What did they do in certain situations? How did they interact with their peers? I was a sponge. I was soaking it all up because I was looking for direction, as what it meant to be a man. So let's jump into this. All right, so this is affectionately titled Just the Facts, and we're going to take a look at some of the statistics from fatherhood.org about men and the effects that they have on their families. So the first one, in America, 23.6% of children, that's roughly 17.4 million, live in a fatherless home, or lived in a fatherless home in 2014, according to the most recent records. 17.4 million children live in a fatherless home. It's crazy. Children from a fatherless home are 279% more likely to carry guns and deal drugs than their peers. And I'm sure we don't have to think long and hard about the guys we either run with or knew in our lives that did one, if not both of these things, right? And if we think about it, and we think about the family dynamics and the situation that they came from, more than likely it was from a fatherless home. There are 10 million single mother households in America, according to the 2013 census. And I'm sure that statistic has not improved. All we got to do is turn on the TV or look outside the window and see the madness that is going on, not only in America but in our world. And that stems from a lack of responsibility that men have towards their households, towards their communities, towards their marriages. And we got to fix it. And it starts with looking ourselves in the mirror and dealing with the things that we're talking about tonight, right? And facing these wounds that we have, so we can make this world a better place for our children and for everyone else that lives in it. 1 in 4 children live in a home without a father. 92% of parents in prison are fathers. That's crazy, right? That's crazy. 92% of parents in prison are fathers, and I wonder what that statistic was when my dad was in prison. It'd be interesting to know. But wow, 92% of parents in prison are fathers. That's crazy, and it's sad. It breaks my heart. Children raised in a fatherless home are at a 4 times greater risk of poverty. They're 7 times more likely to become pregnant as teenagers. They're more likely to have behavior problems. They're more likely to face abuse and neglect. They're more likely to go to jail. They're 2 times more likely to drop out of high school. So, right, I mean, the facts are the facts, and it's no wonder that, especially, from my experience in the black community, that, people can't climb out of poverty. They can't better themselves, right? The odds are stacked against them with all these things and the amount of fatherlessness that takes place. It's almost like hopeless, right? Like you're born into this environment, and what do you do, whether you realize it at a young age or not? I'd be interested to know. I mean, I think back, and I can only speak from my own experience, right, of not having a father around. There were times that I felt hopeless. There were times that I was looking for direction and didn't know what to do, and that led me to take cues from other men. It led me to look for answers elsewhere, in books, in observation, on what I saw on TV, what I saw around me. Obviously, this is a severe problem, and I don't know if there's an easy answer, but I do know this, right? Like, you do have a choice in how you choose to live your life. You do have a choice in how you choose to respond to the hand that you're dealt, and I'm living proof that you can make something out of your life, no matter what situation that you're born into, and I strongly and firmly believe that. The glory of sons is in their dads, Proverbs 17:6. I mean, that just says it right there. If we go back to that picture of me sitting on my father's lap, right? Like, I wanted my dad to be proud of me. I wanted my dad to love me. I wanted my dad's attention. Like, these are all things that are in us innately, like, that we can't deny. There's that connection that we have to our parents, and as sons, there's that connection and bond that we have to our fathers, right? And we all want to know our fathers. We all want to know. We all want to feel that connection, feel that love, feel that acceptance. We all want to be chosen by our fathers, and when those things don't happen, it wreaks havoc on our lives, and it's systemic. Well, yeah, stuttering Steve over here. It's systemic throughout the rest of our lives until we choose to face that, and we choose to deal with that. So let's get into some of this, right? So the absent father wound, and here's a working definition for us to use. An absent father wound is an ongoing emotional, social, or spiritual deficit ordinarily met in a healthy relationship with dad that must now be overcome by other means. And there's 3 words or phrases in remembering dad. These can be different for each person, but these reflect, or these 3 words or phrases that I'm gonna show you. These are things that stand out when I remember my dad. So the first one was absently forgetful, and I got in parentheses there, ghost, because that's what my dad was, right? It's like he just forgot about us, when he got out of prison. Not so much maybe when I was younger. I don't really remember where. I just remember him getting out of prison first time, telling us that he was so sorry and he'd never go back, and then a short time after that he went back again, and then he got out the second time and told us that he would be there and he wouldn't go back, and then he went back again, and finally he got out the third time, later on, somewhere around, I want to say when I was maybe 10, and he disappeared, and he didn't come back into my life again until he was 15. And then something happened, and he disappeared again. And then he didn't come back in my life until I graduated from high school. and then he disappeared again. And I know I'm sounding like a broken record, but uh, it's just the reality of my life and what I went through with my dad. And then after I graduated from high school, he disappeared again. And then when my brother committed suicide when I was a sophomore in college, he showed back up on the scene, said he wouldn't leave, and then he disappeared again. And then when I graduated from college, he called me, and I went and saw him, and that was very sad and tragic because he had stage 4 cancer and didn't look anything like himself. And shortly after that, he died. So he, in essence, disappeared permanently from my life, and that hurt. I think back to his funeral, and one of the defining moments in my life was when I walked up to his casket and I looked down in the casket and I saw him laying there, and I just started getting angry, and I walked back to my chair, and I sat down in my chair, and I got angry, and I started to cry, and it's like my whole entire life up to that point flashed in front of me, and just it was like a movie reel just running in my head as I buried my face in my knees and was crying, and I was running over all the moments in my head, the few moments that I had with him, and all the moments that he missed out on, and I was just angry because I felt like the person that was in the box, who was supposed to be my dad, didn't know anything about me, right? Didn't know what kind of foods I liked. Didn't know what my worst fears were. Didn't know what my dreams and my goals were for life. And the more I dwelt on that, the angrier I got. But I guess the cool thing about that situation that day was I heard God's voice loud and clear, and it whispered into my ear, and it said, "I know everything about you." And immediately this peace just came over me, and those feelings of disappointment and those feelings of hurt, uh, they disappeared instantly. Um, yeah, it was a crazy day. It's a crazy day. So back to the words. So my dad, he was like a ghost, right? And then the second phrase that I'd say that describes me remembering my dad is "show me," because my dad was a big talker, man. He every time, right? Every time he came back into our lives, he would say that he was going to do something, that he wasn't going to disappear, that he was going to be around for me and my brother and my sister, that he was going to, support us. That when I went away to college, that he was gonna help me out, send me money, come see me play basketball, all those things, and with the exception of him coming to my graduation, uh, he never followed through on those things, um, and it just led to me having this attitude or this view of, I don't care what you say to me, like the words mean nothing to me. It's all about what you do. Do your actions follow up with what you do? Whether that's right or wrong, and that's really shaped me in how I look at things today. Like I give people the benefit of the doubt because I'm an optimistic person, and I believe the best in people. But man, when you don't follow through with what you say to me, then I really um, I really defer to show me. Are you gonna do what you say? The next thing I would say describes my dad is he was manipulative. Um, he had a way of, when he came back on the scene, and of trying to manipulate the situation so we wouldn't feel hurt or we wouldn't be angry, or we would forgive him, right? Like every time he would get out of prison, my mom would take us to, he'd get put in this halfway house, and my mom would take us to this mall that used to be downtown here in Grand Rapids. And we'd ride in this train that hung from the ceiling. We'd eat McDonald's, and then my dad would, he would give us some sort of present, right? Whether it was a Christmas present or a late birthday present, because he couldn't be there when those events actually took place. And then he'd proceed to, give me like $10 or $20 to go to this arcade and play video arcade games, right? So I think some of his intentions were pure, and he wanted to make up for lost time. But he always had a gift, or he was always trying to give us stuff to buy, I guess, our love, and buy our forgiveness, or at least that's what it seemed like, right? And in reality, all I wanted him to do was to be true to his word, and to come home and stay home, right? So that I could be the kid that played football with his dad in the yard, shot baskets at the park with his dad, had his dad rooting for him in the stands, not have to be one of the only kids to walk out on the field or walk out on the court with his mom for parent night, right? Like those things are distinct memories that I have of my dad. So let's talk about a few results of the absent father wound and how that plays itself out in men's lives, right? Like the first way that it plays itself out is anger and pain, right? I had a lot of anger towards my dad. I just told that story about his funeral. I had a lot of pain from him not being there. I'll share another quick story in a minute. So I made the 8th grade basketball team on a hope and a prayer, played a kid one-on-one for the last spot. Ended up throwing up this crazy behind the back shot, hit the top of the backboard, fell down through the hoop. I jumped, screamed for joy. He fell to his knees and started crying. He was a way better player than me. I just got lucky, so I ended up making the team. I only ever played if we were up by a lot or we were down by a lot. This was the only game my dad ended up coming to. I don't know why, but we were playing this team in Holland, and I remember looking up in the stands and seeing him that's sitting there with my mom, and man, I was pumped. I was just in my mind praying that I would get in the game. And end of the game comes, and we were down. I'm pretty sure we were down. I sure remember it like that. And I got to go on the game for some scrub time. It was like 4 or 5 minutes. And I'm getting in there, and I'm half Michael Jordan, half Dennis Rodman, right? I'm like diving on the floor after every loose ball. I'm trying to get every single rebound. I scored a couple of points. I mean, I'm just going hard. After the game, we end up losing, and the reason I think we lost is because I was pretty emotional, and I remember leaving the locker room and then walking to the bus with my mom and my dad, and I'm crying because we lost the game. And my dad, he just comes up to me, right, puts his arm around me, a little side hug action, and says to me, what are you crying for? It's only a game. And what was lost on him, and then obviously it's my fault, part of my fault too, because he's not a mind reader. But what was lost on him was that it wasn't just a game. It wasn't just a game to me. It was the only game my dad had ever been at in my whole life, and I wanted to make him proud. I wanted to hear him say that he was proud of me, and he didn't, and that hurt, man. It was like a dagger to the heart, right? So I got on the bus and went back to the junior high, and that was the only game my dad ever saw me play. So the next thing that comes from having the absent father wound is like extreme behaviors, and that can manifest itself in addiction. Drugs, alcohol, pornography, womanizing was a big one for me. Um, and I don't mean like necessarily womanizing to take advantage, but seeking to feel chosen, seeking to feel important, like you have a purpose. And for me, the root of all that was the rejection uh, that I felt from my father. The next thing is the next extreme behavior, right? Is obsessions. Um, you know, Overworking. Um, Obsessing over hobbies. Uh, you know, and I'm guilty of that, right? Like I'm guilty of both of those, overworking and obsessing over things, right? I just poured myself into basketball, poured myself all the hours I spent out there. And a lot of kids, they play like to wear the jersey, or they play to um, get the accolades or be a part of the team, the camaraderie. And I played for a little bit of that, but the main reason I played was because, man, it saved my life, and I was obsessed with it because I could just get away. I could get away from all the craziness that was going on in my life. Uh, you know, uh, the rejection I felt from my father, like that was the one place that, like, I guess I had control, like, or somewhat control, and I could just go out there and shoot and dribble and for hours on end. Um, and it was my own little bit of heaven. So that was my obsession. Right. The next result of the absent father wound is an inner sense of lostness and completeness. And once again, to speak for my own life, like there was times when I felt lost. I didn't know what it was like to be a man. I didn't know what it was like um, uh, to do things in life. Like things your dad's supposed to teach you, right? Like everything from how to write a check to how to pursue your wife to how to cook food. All these life skills, right? All these things that we want to be able to enter the world or enter into adulthood with. That I was left to find out on my own through other means, older friends, older guys, observing men, all those type of things. And then a sense of completeness. I didn't feel complete because my dad didn't know anything about me. And it's not strange, but that connection, right, that we have towards our fathers, um, and that desire to be chosen and to be fully known, right? And I didn't feel that growing up, and that's how it manifested in my life. The next one, the final one, is how this plays out, right? Is insecurity and apprehension. Man, I know, like, if you've known me for years, you probably would think that I was pretty secure, but the reality of it was, inside me, I was really insecure with who I was, and um, what it meant to be a man, and just dealing with a lot of things regarding fatherhood, regarding my role as a husband. Uh, I guess I just do a good job of some. My wife says sometimes I'm like the Tin Man, right? Like I don't show emotion, um, and I just go. I just, like a lot of guys, right? We just suck it up and we put our head down and we just push through, and we don't stop to acknowledge how we're feeling or what we're dealing with. And then the next thing is apprehension. We're hesitant. We're hesitant to take good, healthy risks. We're hesitant to pursue those things that are noble and just. It's right. It's like a lack of confidence. And in a lot of areas in my life, I did have a lack of confidence. And that had to slowly be built up, or slowly be realized. And I think that when you grow up with a father in your household, those things are more prevalent in your life. So that's that for tonight, but we're not done here, because there's a couple of things that I want to talk to you guys about, on a couple of questions that I want to ask you to round this teaching out tonight. So the first thing would be is, which of any of the 4 results of the absent father wound could you most identify with, and why? Like, right, this is part of doing the hard work. This is part of acknowledging what went on in your past with your father. So you need to answer this question. So get a piece of paper, write it down, pray about it, think about it, come back and answer it. And the next question is, what are 3 words or phrases that describe how you remember your dad? That could be good things, that could be bad things, that could be a combination of both. But what 3 words or phrases, when you think about your dad, immediately come to mind? Right? And then what you want to do is, if you're a father, the final part of this exercise is to think about your son. And if he was older, right, 20s, 30s, and he came to you, how would he answer these questions? And how is that going to direct your parenting in your relationship with your own son? So before we get out of here, I just want to acknowledge, right, like, all this stuff comes from this course that I took, The Quest for Authentic Manhood by Robert M. Lewis. This isn't my stuff. I'm not making this stuff up. Like, this is by Dr. Lewis. And this made a profound impact in my life, and I want to share that with you, because I want to help you be a better husband. I want to help you be a better man, a better father, a better member of your community, a better employer, a better employee. Like, I want you to have the most out of life. And in order for you to do that, you got to deal with the junk. You got to deal with the baggage. You got to stop lying to yourself about how you feel, about how you felt about certain things, about what really happened in your childhood. Like, you got to get real. And don't just push it down, brother. Embrace it. Deal with it. Look at it in its eye. Bring it to the light. And I promise you, you're going to have better relationships. You're going to feel more connected. You're going to feel more joy, more hope. Right? You're going to have a greater sense of perseverance, a greater sense of courage. You're going to be able to encourage others more in your own life. You're going to be able to lead your family better. You're going to be able to come alongside your wife more. Your kids are going to see it. Your wife's going to see it. It's going to pour out of every area of your life. Trust me, I'm the living proof, man. This changed my life, these things. And not just glossing over them, dealing with them, taking them serious. So I just want to encourage you in all those things. And I appreciate you guys watching these videos that I'm putting out, right? Like, you're taking ownership of your life. You're taking ownership of your manhood. And it's only going to keep getting better from here as we do the hard work. Like, this is hard stuff. I get that. But you know what? I believe in you. And you got what it takes to do it. You got what it takes to make yourself a better person. You got what it takes to answer the higher calling that's on your life. To stop running from that. Stop running from the responsibilities of being a man, of being a husband, of being a father. Right? Enough of it is enough. Enough suicide among men. Enough of the craziness going on outside in the world around us. Enough of not sticking up for people who can't be spoken for or can't stick up for themselves. Turning a blind eye to it. Right? Like, we're the leaders. We were called to headship. And some of us have walked away from our rightful place on the throne And we need to get back there. We need to crawl back in that place of responsibility and take ownership for that and lead and do it with honor and respect. So that's my encouragement to you. That's my challenge to you. If you found this content useful, if you know a brother who needs to watch these things and needs to see these teachings, please share that with them. Like these videos. Help spread the word. I'm not doing this to get famous. I'm not doing this for accolades. I'm not doing this for praise. I'm doing it because it made a difference in my life and it helped me at one of the most crucial times in my life. And every day I talk with brothers who are going through crazy stuff and I see these things play out. And it's only because I've been through these things myself and I've dealt with these things that I can come alongside them and help them. And I want the same for you. Whether you're going through these things yourself and you need help, or whether you're running into situations, because we all got friends. We all know guys in our lives that are just blowing their lives up. They're blowing their marriages up. Right? Because of addiction, because of insecurity, because of these wounds, man, that they just never dealt with. And what better way to come alongside them, right, and to be a brother, and to reach your hand down and say, I got you. I'm going to help you. I'm going to share this stuff with you. I'm going to do life with you, side by side. So I'll get off my high horse. I'll stop preaching at you guys. I love you guys. I care about you guys. See you tomorrow for the Saturday shout out. Thanks for tuning in. Have yourself a great night.